This is Energy of Business Moments with Michael Sipe, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their business success into your life and business. Energy of Business Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Michael Sipe.
Welcome, everyone, to the Strategic Advisor Board Energy of Business Moments podcast. I am Michael Sipe, your host, and today I have Laura Hatcher. Laura is a classmate of mine from the Naval Academy, and she is a phenomenal photographer, but I'm not doing her the justice that her business deserves. So, Laura, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about your business.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, and happy 30th, classmate. I am a solopreneur and retired in 2018 from basically a life in the military. I've been in the military really since I was 9 years old. So my entire childhood and adult life was focused around the United States Navy. 2018, I retired and went and worked for a nonprofit for about a year. And decided that it was working for somebody else was overrated after 3 decades of being institutionalized. So I had a hobby, which I like to say I turned into my jobby. And now I'm a professional photographer. I settled in Alexandria, Virginia, mainly because I wanted to provide stability for my own children. You know, when you have a choice to stay put and let them go through their schoolings, I think that's the right thing to do, considering military brats, we don't have a choice. So this is where we are. I have a photography studio in Old Town Alexandria where I focus on professional headshots, military ceremonies. I love doing those, retirement ceremonies, promotion ceremonies, community events, and business branding. So.
Oh, that's quite a bit there. And I can appreciate how you want to settle down and have a space where your kids can actually have some stability. When we've been traveling around military-wise from one duty location to another or job location to another, and so the ability to stay stable actually is a really wonderful thing. And then, oh, by the way, you're in a kind of a market area where there's some need for what you provide. So I think you're in a great spot. Congrats on that. Yeah,
Definitely. There is a demand.
Good. Well, demand is good, and that's great for business. And there's just so many wonderful things from when there is demand, but sometimes there are times when it's not so great. And especially for a solopreneur and during the startup phase, some things we just don't know what we're doing. So from an energy perspective, what kind of positive energy we have, and then some kind of negative energy we have about our business. Could you share with us a little bit about one of those negative energy moments you had in your business, and then maybe how you adapted or overcame it?
Yeah, I can't really pinpoint any low points per se, but I think my military training has taught me to assess, right, to figure out what my lessons learned are. And I usually use it as content for blogging. I love to mentor and help others. And so every year at the end of my year, I'll review what went well and what didn't go well. And so there's some general themes that continue to reoccur every year. And so those are kind of that wow moment that I'm not as good at time management as the Navy taught me to be, right? Because when you're in the military setting, time management means everybody is doing it for you. Your boss is managing your time. Your people are managing you. The mission is managing your time. So as a solopreneur, once I kind of got out and really went full time in this, I realized I really suck at it. I do not do well keeping track of 24 hours, without some left and right limits. And so I've been really working on that. And then another lesson learned was imposter syndrome. I've always had that inner bully all the way through, had obviously a successful career, but there's always that voice sitting either on the left shoulder or on the right shoulder. And when you're learning something like photography, right, I'm self-taught, right? So that inner bully pops up probably more often than not, mainly because as a photographer, you're constantly putting yourself out there, right? You're constantly trying to please somebody else. And you never know what the reaction from that client is. You hope they're going to like the end product. But just, one or two delays on a response in an email, right? That employee comes out and says, see, they didn't like the pictures. And so I have to learn how to kind of tamp that down. So.
Oh my gosh, that so makes sense. Like when you are providing that kind of high touch, high level service, that imposter syndrome can totally come in and kind of wreak havoc with our mindset a bit. I can see that quite a bit with people I work with. And so one, to be able to identify that as a lesson learned and to continue to work and evolve out of it. And sometimes these things aren't an overnight change, right? It takes a while for us to get to that point. But I think what's really helpful for people to realize too is when you're in that kind of environment, there are opportunities for us to reflect back where we were in maybe not the same situation, but a similar challenge where we felt like maybe we weren't fully capable or we were trying to satisfy somebody else because we had an ideal for what they might want. And so when we met that challenge in the past, then that kind of ability that we had back then is translatable to today. And it just means that it's a different venue, it's a different method, or it's a different setting. But really, we're just tapping into the ability we had from a while ago, but it's just a totally new setting, and we're unfamiliar more with the setting than we are with our own ability. How would you characterize that for you?
Absolutely. And I'm also finding, having been a very private person all the way up until I went public with this type of business. As an intelligence officer, this is an indication of mourning, right? That we were talking about earlier. When you don't have any presence on social media, that's questionable, right? So as an intelligence officer, I was very private, and now obviously I'm not, because I have to continue to stay top of mind, right? On social media, but showing a little bit of vulnerability and then showing who's behind the business, I've noticed that resonates really well. And so recently on LinkedIn, I posted a video. No offense, but I hate being on video. There's a reason why I'm behind the camera. But I posted a video a couple weeks ago about being very nervous about doing a photo shoot in DC, and because I live very close to DC, but no desire to actually pack up all my gear, find parking. It's just stressful, go through the traffic and everything. I did a quick video after the photo shoot, which went very well, right? It wasn't so much of not being able to do the photo shoot. It was what you said, being in a different environment. And that maybe 1 minute video didn't go viral, but it went beyond my 30 or 40 loyal followers. Yeah. And I got 4 or 5 messages that day saying, I needed this today. I know exactly what you're talking about, because I talked about being nervous, and then obviously it went very well. And to basically, the message was, get out of your own way, get out of your head, get out of your own way. I had spun out my family the night before because I was so anxious about this new environment.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that energy that we bring, that eagerness or that anxiety, whatever it is, people sense it around us. And so if you're in a close environment like with the family, they're going to sense that too, right? So yeah. Well, right. What's really interesting too, Laura, too, when I hear you talking about that, is being a very private person. Like that makes sense from the Intel community. Like you need a low profile. So it's like a double whammy where you're trying to go from being low profile to now being high profile. Oh, and by the way, you're trying to showcase your new capability that you've had all along, but nobody knows about, right? So congratulations on being able to get to that higher level of being confident in what you're doing and getting past some of those shadows or that sense of vulnerability about it. And that video must have really helped.
It did.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like a high moment, but are there any other things from your business side that have just made, warmed your heart or just made you know that you're in the right spot and you're doing some really good work for people?
Yeah, so I started teaching other photographers how to legitimately start a business, right? Because I'm about to be 5 years old, I guess, in terms of business wise. This July 2017 is when I established my LLC. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right, 20% of businesses, I know you know this, 20% of startups fail, right, in that first year. So I've passed that milestone, but about 50% of them succumb to failure within 5 years. So that's kind of a high point. I made it to the 5-year mark.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, making the 5 years is actually huge, because I think the statistic is like at 95 fail by year 5.
Yes.
So that number is a pretty daunting number, and so to get past that point is wonderful. And business is growing for you, right?
It is almost to a detriment, right? Because I can't keep up. So I have to, that kind of goes back to that time management. I have to actually say no more than yes now, because I realize that, there's the act of doing the photo sessions, and then there's the work that people don't realize behind the scenes, where you're spending hours and hours processing, right? And delivering and doing content. And but to circle back to that high point, I got to tell you, the general theme that I'm finding is I kind of went back to my roots in terms of supporting veterans, right? And so for me, teaching veterans to celebrate their legacy and to preserve their time in the service through photography, I think that's more important. And that's what brings me joy, and that's why I think I continue in this. And because we don't, when we were in, you and I know for me, when I retired, I could not put together a large amount of photos through all the years. And as my sons, I have 3 sons, and as they got older, they started asking questions, and they wanted pictures, right? And it's kind of sad. I probably have a handful of pictures from my father and my stepfather, who were both in the service, because same thing, that generation just didn't take pictures. So for me, it's all about, teaching other veterans that are coming behind us to celebrate that service and showcase it.
Yeah, that's really noble too, because we tend to be in the military, tend to be private people. And so when we're private, then we don't have those tendencies to capture those moments of our growth or our career procession. So teaching that makes, I hadn't really thought about it that way, but that's wonderful to hear, because so many people just were like, yeah, I got to year 20 or I got to year 30 or whatever it was, and I got out, and I didn't have a lot to record. And sometimes, like at the younger age, maybe you captured some things that were kind of fun that you were doing. You had a really fun port call, and you're out going with some of the colleagues and seeing the town, and that was great. But you don't have anything beyond that, and that talked about the work you did or the promotion you got because it was unexpected. Things like that aren't captured. Those are life moments that are very important to us. So it's wonderful that you're taking that effort to go and help people get that out of their career and out of their life.
Yeah, it's great. I really enjoy it.
Good. Well, it's clear you enjoy it, and that's part of that energy behind our business. If we have a passion for something, then our business tends to shine a little bit and draw more people to it, and it's a natural attractor. So clearly that's working for you, and a good lesson for a lot of others. So Laura, I always ask this question near the end of this session here. If you could meet anybody, deceased or living, who would that be and why?
Yes. So I put some thought to this, and I promised myself I wouldn't get choked up. So I got to practice delivery, right? So my biological father and I, we were estranged growing up. I was raised by Navy sailor, my stepfather. And probably the reason why I joined the military, because he was an inspiration. But my biological father passed away youngster year, our second year at the Naval Academy, and he was super proud of me to that point. And when I think about it, I really didn't do much. I think it's obviously it was interesting to be able to. to get into the Naval Academy is doing something, obviously, because it's prestigious and challenging to get into. But in his mind, he was super proud that I had chosen to go into the military. So when he suddenly passed away from a car accident, this question made me realize how much he's missed. Right, I've raised 3 amazing young men and had a stepdaughter in my life, and I've, as I mentioned earlier, had a full career. Made it all the way to further than I expected, probably further than anybody else expected for a dumb jock from California. So, I would love to meet him again and say, check it out. Didn't join the Air Force like he wanted me to, but probably, and he would probably joke that, hey, had you joined the Air Force, you would have made captain way sooner than in the Navy. Right? But yeah, I would definitely love to sit down and introduce him to his grandsons and just show him, that I made it.
Yeah, that's really makes sense. You'd want somebody like that to be with you and to be able to chat with them. And of course, business is one thing, but beyond the professional side of business, there's the personal side. Right. And so celebrating the personal achievements in business is one thing, but it's another thing to celebrate life itself. And so when you've had somebody so near and dear to you, then it's great to think that, yeah, I wanted to share with them all the other stuff that I did. And I didn't quite understand why they were excited I was in the Naval Academy, but at the time I was just a sophomore. Like, what's a big deal? But yeah, as a parent, and now that and we know as parents, like when our kids are able to do something differently and make a leap ahead, it may seem small to them, but it's big to us because we know that they're on their way. They're going to fly from the nest and they're going to go do other things that are wonderful. So having somebody that appreciated you and loved you and cared for you, being able to have that is as somebody to chat with, I think that's wonderful. There are many people out here who are listening probably have somebody near and dear that aren't in their lives anymore and are able to say, yeah, I would love to share some of my success and stories with people. That would be really cool. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, Laura, we're coming near the end of the show here, and obviously there's some people who are thinking like, yeah, I'm in the DC area. I'd like to have capture some special moments. How can they get a hold of you? Where can they find some of your work?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's pretty straightforward. Laura Hatcher Photography, if I move my head out of the way, .com. I'm pretty constantly on LinkedIn because that's where I think all the adults are, and that's where my audience is. Right, first lesson in business is know where your audience is and cater to them. And then I'm on Instagram because people expect photographers to be on Instagram, and I was stalking my kids when I first started, so I think now they stalk me, which is a good thing. And then the necessary evil. I'm not a fan of Facebook, but I'm there. So pretty much the general places online.
Yeah, well, that's great. And Laura, thank you for being on the show today. It's great to reconnect, see a classmate, and it's just a comforting feeling to know, like, hey, oh my gosh, it's been 30 years, but we went through something together. We share that common bond, and having somebody like that on the show who I know from my past makes it that's just that much easier to interview. So thanks again for being on the show and taking the time out today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invitation, and it's great to see you.
Yeah. All right. We'll keep going. And for everybody else, hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Energy of Business Moments with your host, Michael Sipe. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.